Here we go.
Let me tell you why you're here. You're here because you know something. What you know you can't explain, but you feel it. You felt it your entire life. But there's something wrong with the world. You don't know what it is, but it's there, like a splinter in the mind. Driving you mad. Take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
I'm your huckleberry.
All right. Welcome, everyone. Anthony ECF, the Discord, Enclosed Cosmology Fellowship Discord. I see Daryl Lee. He came and he had to go eat, so he said he'll be in a little later. That'll be hopefully he'll be in a little later. And let me see here. I hope I can be heard. I hope we can be heard. If anybody's in the chat, if y'all could maybe give us a 5x5 if y'all hear us, and if you're not, please just let us know. Joined by Dave this evening. So far, it's just he and I, as you can see, but it'll be okay. Others will show up in a little while, I'm sure. And if you're just joining us, we have been going over a letter that was written to Dave, basically showing how let me rephrase that. Basically, showing how a religion is showing that the Torah has been done away with according to the New Testament, and we're putting the letter to the test. We're going over verse by verse and seeing what Scripture actually says about some of them, well, all of them, because we're supposed to test all things and hold fast what is good. I wish I knew for sure if I was actually streaming. It says I am, but I don't know that for sure. It's not saying that anybody's here or anything, but that's okay. Notifications probably didn't go out. But anyway, welcome, Dave. And I know we're kind of tromping along with this letter, but that's good because we're really digging into it. You know, I think we're making sure that we look at every nook and cranny of it.
Yeah.
Now they're supposed to be able to hear you on YouTube, but it's not saying that anybody's there. So anyway, it'll still all be recorded.
No, for sure. And then even in this letter, I was going over, because I kind of give a brief skim through before we start. And if I remember right, we're getting into the parts now where she's going to kind of, or their church body is kind of going to start rehashing the same verses we already pretty much read and say pretty much the same stuff. So I just figured we would still read them, and then we'll see where we get by the end. Maybe we do either we do it this one or the next one. Do a like an end statement, or maybe even open it up for people to add extra stuff that they've heard from their relatives or whatnot. That's not covered in this letter, but pretty much, I mean, almost everything is covered. But I'm pretty sure there's something that's not. So, um,
Yeah.
I don't know how you feel about that, but I was kind of opening that up to you to see what you thought.
Oh no, I think it's a great idea. Um, yeah, the more people sharing, the better. You know, I feel like we all have a puzzle piece, and when we bring our puzzle piece to the table, we flip them around and see what fits right. And when it fits, you know, we could go off of it. Eventually, when enough puzzle pieces go together, we start to get a picture, you know, the real picture. So yeah, I'd be more than happy to do that.
All right. I don't know if there's, anything else you wanted to go over, if you just wanted to start reading. I don't know what the game plan, what you feel led. Like I said, there's only one, two more little chapters left in this letter. Like I said, she goes back. It goes back to Romans 7, and it goes back to Romans 6 and Galatians 5, which we've already read. And of course, it goes back to the Colossians, and it's kind of the same. Like I said, same kind of argument. But hey, I guess when you don't have a lot of ammo, you got to try to prolong it, I guess.
Yeah,
Um,
reload it, reload it, and shoot it again.
Because there's certain ones I haven't even, we didn't even read the first John, or any of the ones we normally like to read. I was trying to stay off of those, and I was going to try to use them in the final rebuttal, that we go over this.
Right.
But
Right. I want to say welcome to Child of Father. She says hi there. Welcome. If you could you put a 5x5 in the chat if you hear us both? If you're not hearing us both, I might need to do something different. And welcome and thank you for joining us.
yeah, thank you for joining.
But yeah, we could kind of maybe like recap if you want, like some of the tougher ones or something like that. Some of the ones that could remain questionable, or we could go to the First John and we could. She
I
says
mean, we could
triple
do that. I
five.
mean, I just know that I just wanted to warn people, like some of the stuff, these last two paragraphs are going to basically go over some of the stuff we've already kind of talked about. So I don't know if I should like go and re-put back the scriptures I originally, put in there.
Right.
I
Well,
just didn't know.
yeah. What I was gonna say is, I've been working a little bit on the way I stream and everything, and I do actually have it to where I can use Bible Hub. I mean, sorry, Bible Gateway. I've got it pulled up, so any verses that you want to just pull up, I could pull them up pretty quick, just typing them in or whatever. Um, but yeah,
Yeah, we could easily do. Sorry.
yeah, we could either finish those last couple paragraphs, and we could probably get it wrapped up pretty quick if you want to do that, and then we could see if there's any questions in the chat, or I could drop the link in the chat if they want to join. However, we want to do that. We'll just see how it works out. And I do want to welcome Casey. Welcome to the to the voice chat.
Shalom. Hey, guys.
Go on, brother.
I hope your day's been well.
Yeah, working kind of late and saw you guys pop on. I got the YouTube notification.
Oh, cool. Cool. That's good to know. I wonder about that sometimes. Yeah, Dave, if you want to like read through the rest of that letter right quick, if you said it ain't much to that. Yeah, we
No,
can kind of get
and like
kicked
I said,
off.
we could read each verse, but like a lot of these we've already read. But I'm not against reading again what the verses. But yeah, I'll read the next chapter and I'll stop and see what you think, and then I'll read the next. We'll just go from there.
All right, sounds good.
So it says, the individual showing faith, and like I said before, these are not my words; these are the words written in here. In Christ, figuratively dies to his former situation, and was no longer under those old obligations. He now becomes a slave in a new sense. And then they write Romans 7:6. The person who dies in such a way is, of course, still alive physically and is free to follow Christ as a slave to righteousness. And then they put Romans 6:18 through 20 and Galatians 5:1. And so that's the first little paragraph. And to me is okay if we die and become a slave to righteousness. Well, righteousness is following the Torah, which is Deuteronomy 6:25, and then there's a whole bunch of other. I think we've already talked about this and went over in one of the first episodes.
What they're quoting there too in Romans, and this is just off the top of my head, I think that's also where it says, where Paul also says, like, should we then continue to sin and let grace abound? God forbid. We establish the law. And also, like what you start off with there, no longer slaves to sin. Well, 1 John 3:4, if sin is transgression of the law, and we're no longer slaves to that nature of transgression of the law, and now we're free to pursue righteousness, which, like you said correctly, is keeping the commandments. I mean, it's pretty plain.
Yeah, I'm
100%.
agree. Because if we're going to be a slave to anything, I'd rather be a slave to righteousness than unrighteousness anyway.
Right,
I mean,
you can only serve one master.
Right.
I mean, I think like the biggest lens for people to look at that through is to take 1 John 3:4, and then just every time they see sin, replace it with transgression of the law. So no longer slaves to transgress the law, but then they'll teach, but now you're free to transgress the law.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Like we had an episode, I think you were here for it, where it was basically saying people just don't understand what words mean in the Bible.
Yeah. Yeah. What does it give you the what verse that is that they're quoting?
Well, they just basically they gave us Romans 7:6 and Romans 6:18 through 20, and then Galatians 5:1 is what. So that's what that was written with that whole little thing that I just read.
Okay, yeah, and it's trying to find it here. So yeah, it continues on from there. And being dead to sin, and now living in righteousness. Paul continues in Romans 6. He says, like, let's see, or I don't know if that's before or after. Let's see. He says, "What then shall we say? Shall we continue to sin and let grace grace may increase or abound? Certainly not. How can we, who died to transgression of the law, sin, live in it any longer? Or aren't you aware that all of us who were baptized into Christ Jesus, Yeshua the Messiah, were baptized into his death? We were therefore buried with him through the baptism into death, in order that Christ was raised, Father, and then walk in newness of life." Yeah, I mean, he just, like, he says it pretty plain there. Like, yes, we are, given grace, even though we're transgressors, but should we continue to transgress? Heaven forbid. Did they include that part in their quote?
No, not at all.
Probably not. Yeah.
I think they strictly avoid that one.
Yeah, it's always like that, kind of cherry picking, and then, like, out of context.
This whole time I've been reading and the scriptures they've been writing, it's like they purposely only want to focus on two verses and don't go read the end of that chapter, because that'll be a no.
Yeah, I mean, it would be like picking only two words out of James and then not, not quoting like everything else he says, saying, "Well, see right there, it says like, the end," or something.
Exactly. That's exactly the way this whole letter's gone.
That just reminds me of another one that's kind of famously like misquoted, verse says, "Christ is the end to the law," and then that word, it's actually the word used for "in" there means like the finish line, like the goal. Or even they'll quote and they'll say like, it's he fulfilled the law, but what it really means is, I'm trying to think of the word, that means like to bring to fullness. Because they'll say, I think that's like what Matthew 23 or 25, where it says, or the Sermon on the Mount, don't even think that I came to do away with the law of the prophets, but to fulfill. And then they'll say he fulfilled it. But by fulfill, it means, bring it to fullness. Like, I'm married, so when I fulfill my wedding vows to my wife, I'm not like if I, do all the daily things that honor her in one day, I'm not done with it at that point. To fulfill my vows means to kind of to walk them out, to do them.
Well, 100%. But there's also, I want to look it up real quick to make sure that I quote this right, because I don't like quoting wrong. But I believe, I think it's in Luke 24:14. I think it's where it's at.
Sorry, I was away from the desk for a moment.
Or not 14, 44. Okay, yeah. So in Luke 24:44, and he said unto them, These are the words which I spake unto you while I was yet with you, that all things must be fulfilled which were written in the law of Moses and in the prophets and in the Psalms according to me. So to me, I 100% agree with you, but I also think the fulfillment is the fulfillment of the prophecy that needed to be fulfilled, not that it needed to be like how they want to, I fulfilled it, now it's done, and now you don't have to do it.
before we move on too far, I kind of wanted to share just my little rundown. Uh, we've already mentioned 1 John 3:4, whosoever committeth sin transgresses also the law, for sin is transgression of the law. Um,
Yeah.
but a couple more verses I wanted to share right quick is 1 John 2. Sorry, yeah, 1 John 2 verses 1 through 6. And this is the KJV, so I'm gonna probably mess up a little bit on my reading. It says, My little children, these things write I unto you, that ye sin not. And if any man sin, we have an advocate with the Father, the Messiah, the righteous, and he is the propitiation for our sins, and not ours only, but also for the sins of the whole world. And hereby we do know that we know him, if we keep his commandments. He that saith, I know him, and keepeth not his commandments, is a liar, and the truth is not in him. But whoso keepeth his word, in him verily is the love of Yahweh perfected. Hereby know we that we are in him. He that saith he abideth in him ought himself also so to walk, even as he walked. And we kind of discussed it a while back uh, about the covenants. People will say, well, we're in the new covenant and the law's written on our heart. However, just because people believe that we're in a new covenant doesn't mean the law is going to be done away with even then. Revelation 12:17, now this is during the wrath of Yah. It says, and the dragon was wroth with the woman. Uh, Sorry, let me restart. It says, and the dragon was wroth with the woman, and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, which keep the commandments of Yah, and have the testimony of the Messiah. And I had shared another one, I thought. Oh, yeah. And Revelation 22:14 and 15. It says, now this is after the millennial reign. Keep in mind, this is after the judgment of all mankind. It says, blessed are they that do his commandments, that they may have the right to the tree of life, and may enter through the gates into the city. For without are dogs, and sorcerers, and whoremongers, and murderers, and idolaters, and whosoever loveth and maketh a lie. Now all of those things mentioned in verse 15 are transgressions to the Torah. All of those things. And it says in 14 that if we keep his commandments, who do his commandments, we'll have the right to the tree of life and may enter through the gates into the city. But anyway, that's kind of my little spiel. And I also wanted to welcome Fear. I saw you in there, brother. But welcome to the stream. If you're able to talk, anyway. But
Yeah, you
yeah,
might be having dinner.
maybe so. I don't see any questions in the chat, and it's not even saying that
Okay.
anybody's even there anyway. But I don't know.
So I'll read this. I'll read the next chapter, and I can't wait to hear Casey and your guys' take, because Casey's got some good points, and so does you, Anthony. So it goes, fact, Jesus observed the Sabbath because he was a Jew, and here's the big word, obligated from birth to obey the law of Moses. Galatians 4:4. After Jesus died, this law, covenant, including the Sabbath, was taken away. And then it says, furthermore, through you were dead in the trespass and in the uncircumcised state of your flesh, God made you alive together with him. He kindly forgave us all of our trespasses and erased the handwritten document that concise of degrees and was in opposition to us. He has taken it out of the way by nailing it to the stake. Fact, the Bible leaves such decisions to each Christian. And now she puts Romans
Wow.
14:5. One man judges one day as above another, and another judges one day the same as others. Let each one be fully convinced in his
And it's
own mind. And then she just says, "Love you, son, mom."
I have a lot to say about that one, actually. I thought you guys could hear me a minute ago. Can you hear me now?
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, I was talking earlier, but I don't think you could hear me, and I had to like close out Discord and come back. Mine was glitching out. I I had tried to say something about the Jeremiah, or when you mentioned Anthony, I think about the new covenant. People say, well, we're new in the new covenant, but Jeremiah 31:31, the new covenant is to have the law written on our hearts that we may sin no more, no longer transgress. So part of the default to even being in the new covenant is that state, uh, sort of post-resurrection that you mentioned, millennial reign kind of glorified state where we're no longer able to sin. We have the commandments written on our hearts, so we do them. But I do want to say something to that Romans, what your mom had written about.
yeah, go for it, brother.
Yes,
You
I
got
go
the
for
floor.
sorry, Enoch 777. Yeah, so what she's quoting there, one person will regard, one day when it's all whatever it is in someone's own mind. What Paul's writing about there, and people will use that to say we can have Sabbath whenever we want, or we can eat whatever we want. But nowhere, even in the entire book of Romans, is the word Shabbat ever mentioned. And if they would just back up and read the beginning of that chapter, or just the whole letter, he's speaking to them in regards to fasting. As in the first century, there was, and this still exists, but there was a dispute over days of fasting. And when you had new converts coming in, there were Jews that were keeping certain days regarding days, and they still do this today. So if you know anyone who's Jewish or following anyone who's living out sort of rabbinical Judaism, they take the day that the temple was destroyed as sort of they regard that day, they esteem it, and so they fast on that day every year. And there's many days like that, and it's actually where the tradition in the Orthodox Church and Catholic Church gets the tradition for, and this is where, if you back up a few verses, Paul talks about one man eateth only herbs, one man may only drink water, one person eats not at all. And he's clearly talking about fasting. And they get that eating of the herbs from Daniel chapter 1, and the fast that they took in Babylon when they only ate herbs instead of partaking in Nebuchadnezzar's feast. And so that's why actually in Orthodox Christianity, Eastern Orthodox Christians all over the world fast a vegetarian fast of only herbs every Wednesday and Friday, every week, all year round. And those traditions carried over into the Catholic and Orthodox Church. This is why they have special days for fasting communally in the Catholic Church, for special days of saints. And the Orthodox Church does the same, and Rabbinical Judaism does the same. And so there's a dispute over certain days, and that's why Paul makes it clear. He says, if someone's fasting, let them do it unto the Lord. And if they're doing it, for the Lord, then if they're esteemed in their own mind that they're taking a fast and they're doing it spiritually between them and God, let that be the case, and let no one judge them for that. but they're not talking about anything else. It's strictly on the topic of fasting, and that you shouldn't judge someone who's fasting. And if one person's esteeming a certain day to fast, but then your other brother says, okay, well, I don't really care about the day that the temple was destroyed. I'm not taking a fast that day. It doesn't mean anything to me. Then you shouldn't judge them either. But that's all they're talking about in Romans.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with that as well. And
Yeah, I mean, do you plan to respond to her with some of those points, like the Daniel chapter 1, and cite some rabbinical Judaism and even Orthodox Christian traditions that maybe mention that nowhere in Romans does it talk about the Sabbath, or that he talks about eating herbs, drinking water, or not eating at all? Clearly doesn't mention clean and unclean foods or things like that, or the whole rest of the the Torah.
So I never sent it to her, but I wrote her. So she sent me a 3-page letter, and I wrote back a 9-page letter, and that's like kind of what were
I'm
like
sure.
my talking points when when we were doing this. Like I was going over the scriptures that I wrote in there, but I will go over what I did tell her before I even got the letter, and this kind of stopped her in her tracks. And basically, what I told her was, I said in text message, because she said she sent me a letter dealing with all this, because I was showing her all kinds of scriptures, and so what I sent to her was, and I'm trying to remember, I'm not gonna have it word for word, but I'll give you the gist. I said, I hope you used multiple witnesses. And I gave her the scripture where it says we need to have more than one witness when it comes to, which I think it's in Corinthians, Paul's writings about coming to whatever a conclusion in the scriptures. And I said, because all you're going to send me is a bunch of Paul's writings. And then all I quoted to her was 2 Peter 3:15 through 17 about Paul's writings.
which one is that?
Which I'll read. I'll read it real quick.
You say First or Second Peter?
It's 2 Peter. And it says, so it's 2 Peter 3:15 through 17. And it says, an account that the long suffering of our master is salvation, even as our beloved brother Paul, also according to the wisdom given unto him, hath he written unto you, as also in all his epistles, speaking in them of things in which are some things hard to understand, which they that are unlearned and unstable wrestle, as they do also the other scriptures, unto their own destruction. Ye therefore, beloved, seeing ye know these things before beware, lest you also be led away in error. My translation says of the wicked, but if you look up that word, it also means lawless.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Mine says avon in the Greek, which is lawlessness.
Fall from your own steadfastness. So I pretty much told her, hey, you need to bring more than one witness, and if you only bring Paul, which I know there is no other witness besides Paul, at least the way they understand Paul is their witness. And then I give them this, hey, a lot of people don't understand what Paul's writing. There's an actual warning label right here from Peter telling people to watch out. Maybe you shouldn't be reading Paul before you don't understand the rest of the Bible. Like, you need to understand the rest of the Bible and then go read Paul.
Yeah,
But,
I'm in agreement with that. I think people should save Paul for the very last thing they read.
So she has yet to bring up any more with me, but me and Anthony, we've talked to a couple people that have had some problem. They bring up a lot of stuff, and then we talk to them, and and Anthony thought I did pretty good with some scriptures and stuff, and we were trying to copy it for this YouTube, and it's really hard to copy talking to people um, about all these things that where people are not wanting to follow the Torah. So I was like, oh, let's just go to this letter because this letter pretty much has all the talking points.
It
So
it really is.
if you have anything to add to it, like that. And I think you have a lot of great insight, brother. So
Yeah, I mean, maybe I missed some of the earlier part of the letter, but I mean, most of it, like you said, it's every sort of talking point that someone, kind of hostile against the commandments would bring up, and but I mean, I think that's kind of the thing. And you mentioned witnesses, and it just made me think of another thing that it's interesting. Like there were two witnesses when the law was given, and that was heaven and earth. And that's just another thing that Yeshua brings up on the Sermon on the Mount, that not until heaven and earth pass away, one stroke of the pen from the Torah or prophets or writings be done away with. So those two witnesses, like, you don't really need anyone else. They stand as witnesses to the law until the end of time.
100%.
Yeah, 100% here too. I do want to welcome Amanda to the YouTube chat, to the YouTube there. It says, I came not to abolish the law, but to fulfill it.
Yeah, amen.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think that's a lot of the error too. Besides, like, I mean, I went to seminary school like 20 something years ago, and I served in the chaplaincy corps for a long time in the military as an assistant chaplain, and I taught everything that I was taught to teach, and I affirmed all those other things because for the longest time I had never been taught, and I never looked on my own for a different take on it than what was given to me. And so that's where I me personally find a lot of grace with people who are maybe not aware of those things. But then at a certain point, when you make someone aware, as like the saying goes, you show an honest man where he's wrong, and he'll become one of two things: either no longer wrong or no longer honest. And like the scripture says, that people will have like itching ears, and they'll be stiff-necked, and so they don't want to turn away. And like, I've experienced this, and I know you guys have too, where some people, like I have a close friend that I think I had shared this with you guys before when I hopped on a couple weeks ago, whenever it was. I have a friend that it took like 6 hours, a road trip from here in Kansas City down to Dallas to just make a case for the Torah. And by the time we got to Dallas, he was eating clean. By the time we came back, he was keeping Sabbath. And it's been like 2 years, and his life was changed in like a 6-hour conversation. It didn't really even take a full 6 hours. 6 hours was like to kind of really respond to a lot of like, hey, how do I do this? But he was eager to receive it, just like I know a lot of us probably were in the beginning when you kind of discover Torah, and that you're instructed to walk in righteousness in that way, that you have an eagerness to do it, and that shows your love. Like Yeshua says, like, if you love me, keep the commandments. And it really shows, just like how I'm eager to keep the covenant I have with my wife. You know, she's eager to do the things that make me happy. I'm eager to make her happy. But then there's people where I think, and that's where Yeshua says that, like, they're gonna hate you because they hate him, because he judges them. And if there was no standard for righteousness, no law, there's nothing for him to judge them by. But he judges them, and so people who really, they like a dog returning to its vomit, they really like pleasures, and so then they become hostile to hearing the truth. And that's what I've experienced. Some people are eager for it and they immediately run to it, and then there's the others that, you know, like I said, they, instead of staying honest, then they just become wrong.
Yeah, and I think you brought up a good point with you read it kind of earlier with Yeshua and stuff, and so I guess that would be a you know, a good point. Like, you know, you got I think we've already read the Matthew 5, haven't we, Anthony?
I mean, we did a while back. I mean, we could definitely do that again. I
I
do
was
have
thinking we could go for it.
I do have one thing Amanda says in the chat there. It says Peter showed it was okay to eat unclean things. Paul needs to be taken in context. I mean, God showed Peter.
Well, we can address that real quick.
Yeah, that's going to
That's
be
Acts chapter
Acts 10. Yes, sir. Sorry.
Yeah. So Peter's vision, and so the what's happening there. Is she able to hear this?
Yes, sir.
So you have so, and this happens about 10 years after the resurrection. So this is 10 years after the resurrection, 10 years after, you know, Shavuot, Pentecost. 10 years later, and Peter is still, well, for one, he's still eating clean, because not a single clean thing has ever entered his mouth. Nothing common or unclean. And this is where sort of the context behind the definitions of those words matters. So there's two terms there. There's, I think it's arkotos, which is something that's unclean. And then there's koinos. Koinos was the term in the first century for anything that was considered by the rabbis or rabbinical Judaism to be unclean by association. It's not the word used for unclean Leviticus 11 meats, but koinos applied to anything that was considered unclean by association. So not only if you had a clean, juicy, properly slaughtered and prepared steak that had touched some pork, would they consider that koinos, common by association? But they also considered, if you were a ethnic and religious Jew and you went into the home of a Gentile to eat with them, you would be considered koinos, common, unclean by association. And that's clearly what's happening there, and Peter addresses that. So he denies the you know, the malach, the messenger, and the, you know, the angel in the vision and the dream, and he denies 3 times. He also explains this, I think, at least 3 times in the book of Acts. He explains it twice later on. He explains it to the group, and then at the Council of Jerusalem. And all the 3 times that he explains the dream, he tells them that the Most High has shown him that he's not to consider any man common or unclean. And he makes it pretty clear that the dream is about people and not food. Had nothing to do with food, definitely didn't have anything to do with Leviticus 11, and that, like, you know, we don't need to eat clean anymore, or that we can go eat pork, because the vision basically is just that you have a multitude of foods, certain animals, and he's told slaughter and eat, and it's mixed with creepy crawling things. So he would have considered anything in there common. And that's why he makes the distinction. He doesn't just say, I've never had anything unclean and unclean. He says, I've never eaten anything common or unclean. And then he also is very clear in his words, saying, I'm not to call any man common or unclean. And again, it's about men. And that's part of that, Acts chapter 10 through 11. involves Cornelius, who was a believer and was held in high regard, but he happened to be a Gentile. And Cornelius also receives sort of a message from an angel, from a Malach, to send for Peter, Simon Peter. And so he sends word for him to come into his home and eat with him. And when the men show up, that's after Peter has that vision. And he wakes up and he's perplexed by it at first. He says, I'm not sure what the dream means. But then he knows, then he's told by the angel, these, men are going to come. They're going to tell you to go and meet with this guy Cornelius. You're to do it. So he does it, and on the way, it's revealed to him what the dream is about. And that's why he's eager to go in and eat with Cornelius, this Gentile, where to most of rabbinical Judaism in the first century, they would have considered Peter to be koinos, common, by going in and eating with a Gentile. But the breakdown there is that the Most High is showing him that, again, against these traditions of men that separate us from other people in fellowship, because Cornelius was a believer, and he trusted in the Messiah, and he believed in the Most High, but he happened to be a Gentile and not a Jew. And that's the context there.
Yeah, thank you very much for sharing that. I got a kind of a sarcastic-ish joke about that, about Acts 10. Is I don't mean any offense by saying it. It's just kind of one of them things that might just kind of grasp your attention or whatever. But my pastor, when I asked him why we were going to eat bacon and shrimp and whatever else they had that was unclean in there, he just about yelled it at me. He says, Acts chapter 10. And I don't think he meant for it to be like yelling at me, but it's almost like he got real excited. He couldn't wait to say that to someone. Anyway, I just kind of took him at his word. It said that he had cleaned all foods. Well, then I read Acts chapter 10, and I came to the conclusion that if Acts chapter 10 had anything to do with food at all, then Peter's visions would have meant for Peter to go kill and eat Cornelius.
I've never heard that. That is a good one. That's funny. Right here too, I just want to, because before I was just going off the top of my head, but I'm here in the chapter now, Acts 10, 28, 27, 28. Peter explains it. I just wanted to read this if I could real quick. He said to them, you know how unlawful it is for a Jew to associate with a foreigner or to visit with him. But Most High has shown me that I should not call any man, and then it'll say common or unclean. But again, that word there is koinos, and I believe it's the unclean is orkositos. So, and if you look up what koinos is, I think that's like Koins or OS, koinos. You'll see the definition of what that is, what it means, and it'll give you a definitional breakdown of it was a Jewish term for something unclean by association. But Peter right there, he says it within the same chapter. You know how unlawful it is for a Jew to associate. That's nowhere in the Torah. That's traditions of men.
I also highly recommend read Acts 11 and 10 to the person that asked the question. Pray about it, read it for yourself from the beginning to the end, both of them, and see what the brother was saying is quite accurate.
Mhm.
They said, let's see, until the Holy Spirit came on the Gentiles. It said, and then she says, but it was a law given by God for a reason in the Old Testament. I agree. I think it's that reason that was given in the Old Testament still holds true today, though. Then she says the Messiah did change that one. I don't. The Messiah never really even had authority to change anything, though. So he didn't change anything. Look what
If he
happened
had,
to.
that would have violated Deuteronomy 13 and the test for prophets and Messiah and all that, if he had come and taught against it or changed
I
anything.
think I think she's bringing up the thing where it says that anything that enters into your mouth is you're not defiled. They like to use that my mom did not add that into her letter.
Yeah, so that one is easy to explain also. And if you read it in
Yeah,
the Greek, they're also going to mention koinos there. But yeah, I mean, or we can talk about it, or if you don't want to, but that
no, go
one's
for
pretty.
it. 'Cause
Sure, yeah. So in those passages, if you back up again, like we have to start from the beginning of the chapter, not just like read one line in the very middle. It's not what goes into your mouth that defiles a man, but what comes out from their hearts. For everything that goes in ends up in the latrine. Well, back up to the beginning of that chapter, and you guys can probably find it while I'm talking about it, but it's going to begin with saying that the Pharisees were rebuking Yeshua and his disciples for not keeping with the traditions of the elders. Again, not keeping with the Torah, not keeping with the traditions of the elders. And it says, for they had a custom of, and I'm probably paraphrasing, but they had a custom of washing their pots and pans, hands, and their couches even, it mentions. And so it goes on from there, and it's because they were eating without having kind of gone through this rabbinical Judaism, this Talmudic sort of practice of washing their hands, pots, pans, and couches, as the Pharisees were saying, the traditions of the elders. And then Yeshua says, and he quotes Isaiah, he says, well, did Isaiah prophesy about you? You know, you pretty much give me a lip service, your hearts are far from me, because they were hypocrites. They weren't keeping Torah, but they were so strict about these traditions. And so he was making the point that it doesn't matter if they're eating clean foods, because again, like you have to kind of look at it through this lens that in the first century, whether it was Yeshua and all the disciples, or it was the Pharisees or Sadducees, none of them, certainly not the Pharisees, would have been eating anything unclean. So when they're getting on to him about eating things that are koinos, if you're reading it in the Greek, common, because their hands are unwashed, the the view there is that they're not getting on to him about eating a big ham. They're clearly all eating clean foods. That's kind of the context of the setting there. They're upset and they're saying that his food is now common, koinos, because they haven't washed their hands before eating, which isn't in the Torah. It is in some of the instructions for ceremonially slaughtering the meal offerings. So the animal offerings, for some of those things, you've got to be mikvah or ritualistically washed according to Torah beforehand, but it's not a requirement for just feeding yourself. And so yeah, and then I think it's in that same chapter where it says that, or maybe that's elsewhere, and it's one that people will bring up for, nothing's to be refused as long as it's received with thanksgiving. But they'll usually stop it right there when the rest of the passage that follows is if it's sanctified by the word of God. And sanctified, that word being kadosh, or holy, set apart. And the only place in the word of God that we can find anything that's set apart or sanctified is Leviticus 11. So nothing that's sanctified by the word of God, Leviticus 11, set apart foods, should be refused if it's received with thanksgiving. And I think that is in another chapter, because I think that's where, as Paul's talking about, that in the latter days there's going to be people who are trying to get you to, he basically describes what they're doing now, trying to get you to eat bugs and eat pork and all kinds of things that weren't meant to be food. That's why bacon's in everything.
See. Yeah.
So I know I can rattle off a bunch of stuff real fast, but I hope it was clear enough to follow.
Well, she does say something else there. She says, and it says, "Eat what is presented to you" in the New Testament. But Amanda, if you'd like, I shared the link where we're at to the Discord. If you let me know, we'll get you in the chat if you would like to talk about these things. We don't just jump on somebody or something like that. We're pretty cordial. Um, but we
Yeah, I
we
think all these
actually
things were
are
things that
kind
we
of
all questioned.
yeah. We actually are kind of looking for a little opposition because we've looked at these things for many years, and it's hard to know where someone's at. You know, um, so basically, it's just a whole lot easier to get get to know someone, in voice than in text, because I would hate for something to get taken out of context when it comes to the text. So anyway, that's the link in the chat there if you would like to join. She also says I tried to eat kosher for the longest. And Casey, I'll let you go ahead.
Sure. I just wanted to say, was it Amanda you said?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm not over on the YouTube, just in the Discord. So I can't see any of what she's saying. I can only respond to whatever you guys are saying she's saying. But yeah, I just want to say, if she can hear this, that we love you, and there's nothing hostile here at all with whatever questions you have. I'm sure anyone here would be 100% open to like engaging with that in the most loving and charitable way possible, because we've all kind of been there ourselves, and it doesn't do us any good to keep what we've learned about these subjects to ourselves. And also, at the end of the day, if you completely disagree with anything I have to say, it doesn't offend me at all, and it doesn't wound me. I'm not upset about it. It doesn't hurt me. I just I'm happy to answer any questions anyone ever has. But also, I think that's the best thing you can do, is question everything, because a lot of people just let the preachers, pastors, and teachers do all their Bible reading for them. And that's why I would always say too, don't just trust anything I have to say. But if I say something, I'm saying it coming from a place of love, and out of a lot of deep respect. So I've always kind of taken the position, if someone brings information to me that way, then with love and respect, I will investigate it. And I can only speak for myself, but I'm sure for everyone else here too, I would never want to be in error. And if I'm wrong, that's fine. But we should all be willing to set our pride aside, and investigate these things, so that the Most High can be proven right, and we can be humbled and open to correcting our ways however we need to.
Yeah, I definitely stand corrected if I'm in error as well. That's kind of how I got to where I'm at now, in a way, is because I used to think that I knew some things, and I got into discussions with people, sometimes arguments. But the more I tried to disprove them, the more that I found out that I was wrong the whole time. But that stuck with me. It stayed with me. It became more like wisdom than knowledge, and perhaps one day we could talk about the difference there. But yeah, it just stayed with me. I'm not the best at remembering book, chapter, and verse and stuff like that, but I know kind of a good bit what it does say, and I know when something sounds contradictory, it sort of sets off an alarm in my mind, I guess, or something like that. But anyway, um, I'll be looking for you in the Discord, though, if you do happen to join. Where did you post that at?
I just clicked on the little chat bubble that's in um, the voice chat. So just some scripture there on kind of the thought that Yeshua came and taught anything different or changed anything. In John 7:16, Yeshua answered them and said, "My doctrine is not mine, but his that sent me." Proverbs 4:2, "For I give you good doctrine, forsake ye not my Torah, my law." And Malachi 3:6, "For I am Yahweh your Elohim, I change not." For me, those are some powerful, like convicting passages that show that, you know, Yahweh doesn't change, and that Yeshua came without any new doctrine of his own, but of the Father that sent him. And if the Father doesn't change, and I think it's Psalm 119 says, your righteousness is an everlasting righteousness. Your Torah is truth. So if it's everlasting, and the truth is the Torah, and if it, like it says there in Proverbs and in Malachi, I give you good doctrine, forsaking not my law, I change not. And like I said, Yeshua in John 7:16, my doctrine is not mine, but of him who sent me. So
And then I went and looked up the account with the washing of the hands, and there's it's like Matthew 15, Mark 7, and Luke 11, I believe. But in the Matthew 15, I'm just going to read only two verses. Verses 2, and this is where the Pharisees come and talk to him. They say, "Why do thy disciples transgress the traditions of the elders? For they wash not their hands when they eat bread." And so in Matthew 15:20, it says, "These are the things which defile a man, but to eat with unwashed hands defiles not a man." So if you need to read that with the whole, the whole chapter, like Casey was talking about, to get the true what Yeshua is really talking about.
Yeah, I've noticed that a lot of times people can build a entire doctrine off of one verse, sometimes even half of a verse. And usually when we read the next verse, we find out that their whole doctrine is made up, especially when it comes to Paul's writings. Yeah, and, it has to do with love too. Like, if think of your own worldly father. If you want to impress him, you want to be obedient to him. You want to you want to do as he asks, and make him proud of you or whatever. It's the same with Abba. He gives us specific instructions as to how to love him. I know it's a parable, but like the rich young ruler, he was keeping the Torah, but he wasn't doing it because out of love. He wasn't doing it because he wanted to. He's doing it because he felt he had to, I guess. And of course, he wasn't willing to turn away from his worldly things to follow the Messiah, to actually do the commandments out of love. And when we do the commandments like he was doing it, it's vain. It means nothing. It's pointless.
No, I would agree. Um, so I know that we read the Matthew 5. I was going to read the Luke 16:17 to match that Matthew 5. Um, kind of wanted to go over a couple scriptures that Messiah talked to people because we should following his words. So in Luke 16:17, and he said, "And it is easier for heaven and earth to pass than one tile of the law to fail." So he's matching exactly what he said in the Matthew. Um, and then I wanted to read Matthew 7, part of Matthew 7. I'm going to start in 18 and I'll stop in 23. "And a good tree cannot bring forth evil fruit, neither can a corrupt tree bring forth good fruit. Every tree that brings not forth good fruit is hewn down and cast into the fire. Wherefore by their fruits ye shall know them. Not every one that says unto me, Master, Master, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven, but he that does the will of my Father which is in heaven. Many will say to me in that day, Master, Master, we have not prophesied in thy name, and in thy name have cast out devils, and in thy name done many wonderful works. And then I will profess unto them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you workers of lawlessness." I don't know if you guys want to say anything, because I think that's very deep and very profound. And all I get from that whole reading is that we need to follow what Father wants us to do, and that we'd have good fruits, and that if we do this, we won't be cast out into the lake of fire or the darkness or whatever way you want to perceive it.
To me,
And
that's
then I
one of
wanted
the.
to read. Go for it.
Yeah, I was just saying, to me, that's one of the scariest passages in all of Scripture. The Matthew 7.
Yeah.
You were about to say something, brother.
Oh, I was gonna. There was another one that always pops up on me that no one really. It's a parable, but I think it speaks to all the same stuff here. It's in again in Luke 16. Um, so if you read the whole parable of past it, the parable of rich man and Lazarus. Now I'm not going to read the whole parable, but I'm just going to read like the end part, so 29 to 31. And this is now, in this parable, Abraham's now talking to the rich man, and Abraham says unto him, "They have Moses and the prophet; let them hear them." And he said, "Nay, Father Abraham, but if one went unto them from the dead, they will repent." And he said unto him, If they hear not Moses and the prophets, neither will they be pursued through one rose from the dead. So as you read through this, the only ways that, his brothers weren't going to get thrown into the lake of fire is if they weren't following what Moses and the prophets, which at that time was pretty much the whole Bible, or all the scrolls pretty much. So again, as you look at Messiah's own teaching and his own words, he's I like how you put it, Anthony. It's not just doing it, but it's doing it in love. Love for the Father and love for our neighbor and love for people. The mechanics of it does no good if you don't have love in it. But that's all he's doing is teaching people to follow the correct way and to do the correct way.
Yeah, I agree.
Sorry, I'm being kind of quiet. I'm eating with the family right now, but I posted some things in the text chat, kind of to what you're saying about, him saying, "Depart from me, workers of iniquity, lawlessness," and it kind of brings up the point too that in 2 Thessalonians 2:7-13, we're given an account of the lawless one. And it says, "For the mystery of lawlessness is already at work, but the one who now restrains it will continue until he is taken out of the way. And then the lawless one will be revealed, whom Yeshua the Messiah will slay with the breath of his mouth and annihilate, and by the majesty of his arrival. And the coming of the lawless one will be accompanied by working of Hasatan, the accuser, with every kind of power, sign, and false wonder, with every wicked deception directed against those who are perishing because they refused the love of the truth." And there's more, but that would have saved them. And there's more there that I was going to read from that, but below it you can see in the text chat where I put, what is the truth that saves? And then that's Psalm 119, 142. Your righteousness is an everlasting righteousness. Your law is truth. And the rest of that there too, the truth that would have saved them. For this reason, the Most High will send them a powerful delusion so that they will believe the lie, in order that judgment may come upon all who have disbelieved the truth and delighted in wickedness. But we should always thank the Most High for you, brothers who are loved by the Lord, because Yahweh your Elohim has chosen you from the beginning to be saved by the sanctification of the Spirit and by the faith in the truth. And again, like it says in Psalm 119, 142, righteousness is your righteousness of everlasting righteousness, and your Torah is truth. I just want to add that.
Yeah, thanks for reminding me. So I always have a great spot in 2 Thessalonians when it talks about the man of sin. And, in verse 15 it says, "Therefore, brethren, stand fast and hold the traditions which ye have been taught, whereby the by the word or your epistle." Now that word tradition is a Strong's number of 38062 in the Greek, and I have that underlined because when you look that word up, it's pretty. I want to read that what the meaning, at least in Strong's, means. So, sorry guys, I gotta flip through. I'm a paper Bible person. Not against anybody that has a digital. I know that my paper one will go nowhere.
That's all right. Just real quick, Daryl, what verse were you referring to? Daryl says, I think that verse may be talking about being afraid that it may have been an offering in idolatry. Paul also talks, I think that's about that an idol is nothing, but eat, don't eat if it could cause another to stumble.
Okay, so I found it. So in the Strong's, the 3862, and it says a precept, which precept, if you go into the Hebrew, means law, specifically the Jewish traditional law ordinances. So that is the traditional Jewish law, is what that word means in that Second Thessalonians. So Paul is telling you to therefore stand fast and hold the traditions which ye have been taught. And it makes sense because in that whole Second Thessalonians, it's talking about a man of iniquity that's going to come on the stand. And how is there a lawless man if there's no law? Or they call him the man of sin. How is he the man of sin if there's no sin?
That's an excellent point. That's a pretty large topic too. Um,
Oh man, yeah.
yeah, how could you have sin without righteousness, and how could you have righteousness without sin?
I wanted to also throw in there that to what you're saying about him saying hold fast to the traditions, or like basically the instructions or doctrines that they've been teaching. Kind of goes back to, I think it's like Acts chapter 16 or 17, the first council of Jerusalem, where they're kind of addressing like how to handle new converts. And James gives instructions straight from Deuteronomy and Leviticus against strangled meats, blood, fornication, and idolatry. And then he kind of tops it off with saying, for the rest will be taught week to week in the Sabbath as they learn Moses.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah, I'm in agreement too. And want to welcome Daryl right quick. Daryl, I hope supper was good. Yeah, I think you made an excellent point there about that, there, Casey. I don't know if we lost Amanda there. Last thing she asked if like a call in, but I don't know if they might be having trouble just getting Discord downloaded or if they just said, "Oh, phooey." I don't know. Anyway, they was addressing some things that I guess are kind of hot topics when it comes to this topic. And yeah, I think the other videos that we've done, the other studies we've done on it, I think we kind of cover that pretty well. If they want to go back and look at it.
Yeah. And I get it. There so many people that are normal day Christian or denominational Christian. I'll just say it like that because I don't want to really offend anybody. Um, their biggest things are they don't want to give up eating pork. and they don't want to give up their Saturdays or the Sabbath day. That, you know, those are the two hang-ups. Other than that, they'll agree on, oh, I won't murder, I won't cheat, I won't steal, adultery's bad. It's just those two little things that the enemy has just and sewn into people's brains that they the rest is easy to follow, but those two things are impossible to follow.
Yeah. That idolatry one got to me when I realized what it was saying. I'd always looked at a cross or a picture of who they call Jesus, which we know that isn't the actual picture of Jesus or something, but I looked at those things and, envisioned it in my mind. That was bad, but I didn't know any better. I was taught to do that. You know, that's what really bothered me the most when I realized that all these things were still important and everything. It's what bothered me the most because I thought I was doing right my whole life. I thought I was doing the right thing because that's what the preachers told me. I realized that I cried for a week.
Yeah, and that's another thing we just not being taught what words mean in the scriptures.
Right. Casey, I do want to thank you for sharing what all you've shared with us this evening. I know you don't get to come by too often, but it's a pleasure to have you come by. Thank you very much. And I'm actually glad you started texting in this channel here because I think we ought to start using it instead of the event topic because I think it's easier to be seen on YouTube. I think it's readable. I like this idea. What do y'all think?
Yeah,
All right, cool.
I was looking for. I can't remember exactly where it's at, but I believe Casey talked about it. Where the young man, or was it maybe you, Anthony? He wanted, what do I need to do to come, you know, enter in or follow you or whatever, and he told him to do the commandments, but if you read the whole thing, he pretty much, says that's how you enter into the kingdom is if you do the commandments, the law. And then by the end, the kid didn't want to give up all of his worldly possessions. And then Yeshua says it's easier for um, a camel to enter into the eye of the needle than it is for a rich man to enter into the kingdom of heaven. I was thinking of that one, and I don't think we talked about the James. I don't know if we read James, part of James 2.
I think maybe I was glitched out again and you couldn't hear me. Yeah, you were mentioning the Yeshua and the rich ruler, and there's he's basically just quotes some instructions out of Deuteronomy for giving of your abundance to the poor. And the guy had a lot of abundance, so he didn't want to do it. Because he's like, he tells him, well, I've kept everything. And he says, what left is there for me to do? What else must I do? And he says, pretty much just gives him instructions straight from Torah, give of your abundance to the poor, but he doesn't do it. And then I did post something from James. To what you guys are saying about people who don't want to like give up their weekends or adjust their diet. And this is James 1:19-25. My beloved brothers, understand this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to anger. And that kind of goes back again to where we see people get angry. They get like kind of provoked to anger or hostile when confronted with the Torah and walking out Torah because it convicts them. You know, the law, just like if I go speeding or like, to a murderer, the law is like an enemy. But so we're to be slow to anger, for man's anger does not bring about righteousness that Yahweh desires. Therefore, get rid of all moral filth and every expression of evil, and humbly accept the word planted in you, which can save your soul. Be doers of the word and not hearers only. Otherwise, you are deceiving yourselves. For anyone who hears the word but does not carry it out is like a man who looks at his face in a mirror and after observing himself goes away and immediately forgets what he looked like. But the one who looks intently into the perfect law of freedom and continues to do so, not being forgetful or forgetful hearer, but an effective doer, he will be blessed in what he does. So again, like James calls the law, the perfect law of freedom, not a burden, not something that we can't do. He calls it the perfect law of freedom.
And not bondage.
Yeah, definitely not bondage.
A lot of
Especially
people,
if it's perfect, why would you do away with it?
yeah, a lot of people make that claim that the law is bondage.
Yeah.
Yeah, we went through with that on the first part of the letter.
Yep.
And on that 125, I have a footnote for Psalms 1 because it's, in Psalms 1, it's we meditate daily in it. We love the law,
It's also, in the Torah, when the instructions are given, I believe Yahweh says that I did not give you anything that's too difficult for you to do.
And he proves that through the Messiah. The Messiah proved that it's not too hard to do. It's not too difficult because he did it. Showed us how.
Yeah, and I mean, even if you don't want to go so deep into what all instructions or commandments apply to you and how do those get worked out in your life, depending on where you're at and who you are and what you do. I think it's ramesh, means to keep, is the word that's usually used for keep, which means to guard, to cherish, to revere. And people all the time, we've all heard people say, no one can keep all the commandments. No one can keep all the commandments. But I always like to give Luke 1 and the parents of John the Baptist, Yohanan ben Zachariah and Elizabeth, as a good example. Where Luke 1:5 it says, Luke 1:6, we'll start there, because pretty much it introduces in 1:5, in the time of King Herod, you had Zechariah of the priestly division of Biha, and then his wife Elizabeth, daughter of Aaron. And then it says both of them were righteous in the sight of Yahweh, walking blamelessly in all the commandments and decrees of Yahweh. So no one can do it, but here in the New Testament, in Luke chapter 1, both Zechariah and Elizabeth are walking in righteousness. And it says in all the commandments.
And then you have Revelations 14:4-5. I know Anthony loves reading Revelations.
Revelation 14, 4 and 5. I'll read it.
Yep.
That one's one I'm not super familiar with. 4 and 5. These are the ones who are not defiled with women, for they are virgins. These are the ones who follow the Lamb wherever he goes. These were redeemed from among men, being firstfruits to Yahweh and to the Lamb. And in their mouth was found no guile, for they are without fault before the throne of Yah. It's the 144,000.
Yep. So they also are walking without fault. And I believe you also have Daniel that was also found without fault. I think it's in Daniel 6, 4, and 5. So there is characters in the Bible. I don't have no proof for it, but I have a feeling that Joseph, I haven't read anything that Joseph did anything, there's nothing written down, at least, that he did anything. But yeah, definitely Luke 1:6 with Yochanan or John the Immerser's parents.
I have a theory about John. Chris says I'm obsessed with it, but it's something.
Yeah, but that's not the same John.
Oh, okay.
That's that John the Revelator and the Immerser, or the Apostle John, is different from the John the Immerser.
Yeah, I must have misheard you. Maybe I got excited. I don't know.
I mean, we could talk about that too, because we are at the end of the letter. I mean, we are getting into the point where we can discuss, like we normally go into our rabbit hole discussions of different topics.
Well,
which I do like that discussion. It is a good one.
Well, I am making a video on it. I actually, I've got it started. It's going pretty well. I've got everything laid out. I just got to put it all together. But I would kind of rather discuss it afterwards. But
yeah, that's not a problem. I could discuss the cool thing that happened to me today, but there's that too.
All right.
So I usually read my Bible every night, and usually somehow whatever I read somehow will apply, or something will happen that I can relate back to what I read, And so my reading yesterday was one of them was, because I read a chapter out of the Torah, I read a chapter out of the prophets. Well, actually, I read a chapter between Joshua and the Song of Solomon, and then I read a chapter out of the prophets, and I read a chapter out of the New Testament. Well, one of my Torah reading was in Exodus, and it was Exodus, I think, 2, when Moses is born and all this stuff with Moses, And so today when I go to the shop to work, there was a new technician that showed up to help work in the shop, to work on some of the machines, and you'll never guess what his name was. His name was Moses.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, man, I really love your name. He's like, sweet. And then later on, I got to talk to him. He was just a really nice kid. He's probably late 20s, early 30s. And I finally told him, I was like, yeah, I'm really big into, I think I told him that I was raised a Jehovah's Witness, and then he asked me how that was, and he's like, are you still religious? And I'm like, I read my Bible every day, man. And so then I'm talking to him, and he's like, yeah, it's really weird. I'll start talking to people, and they're having a really bad day, and then I'm listening to them, and they're just letting out of all their problems, and then he's like, and then I'll tell them my name, and then they'll be like, it's a sign. And he's like, I have no idea what they mean. And I come to find out that they read the Bible or they go to church, and I don't even understand this. And so I'm talking to him like, do you even know Moses' story? He's like, no, I've never read the Bible. I've never been to church. I think people that go to church, most of them are hypocrites. And I see, I live across the street from a church, and the women show up, dressed, scandalous and this, that, and the other. And I was like, you should read. I was like, I'm not trying to tell you to do anything, but you should read the story of Moses. You should understand why people look at you and want, when they hear your name, they kind of they stand back. It's like, you should probably read that, And he's like, yeah, I probably should. So I got to witness to Moses, and I read about him the day before I met him. You know what I mean? In the Bible. So it's
That's pretty awesome, man.
So I'm going to bring my Bible tomorrow.
Yeah, cool.
And hopefully it goes good, and hopefully he reads it, and he seemed like he had a really nice like a kind heart. So
Well, I hope everything works out when it comes to that there. I kind of am in, I guess, maybe a little bit of the same situation, but not really. They haven't said anything else about it. I don't know if they are looking into it more, or if they just kind of written it off. I don't really know. I don't know if this really has anything to do. Well, I guess, yeah, it does. About the food we were discussing earlier. But Isaiah 55:2, it says, why do you weigh out silver for what is not bread, and your labor for what does not satisfy? Listen, listen, listen to me, and eat what is good, and let your being delight itself in fatness. Now this is the Hallelujah scriptures. I couldn't remember the verse earlier, but it says, eat what is good. Now, if Yah is saying that all flesh is good except for what's mentioned in Leviticus 11, he's saying here, eat what is good. So eat whatever flesh you like except for Leviticus 11, of course. I don't know. Is that a stretch? But to me, it sounds pretty clear. Like anything that's not mentioned in Leviticus 11 would be considered good by the Most High. Because he does say in Genesis 1:31, and Elohim saw all that he had made, and see, it was very good. And there came to be evening, and there came to be morning the sixth day.
That I would also say that when he made man and woman, he said it's very good, but we don't eat people.
that's a good point.
But and then that I just always go back to where it said nothing's to be refused if received with thanksgiving and sanctified by the word of God, which would be Leviticus 11, where it's set apart, because if it's not set apart, then then what is?
Right.
I kind of made that point to someone the other day too, about things that are food and things that are not food, how we would never consider people food. And it doesn't explicitly say in the New Testament, no cannibalism, even though that was like heavily prohibited in the Old Testament. It was like great sin of the Canaanites. But that's also another thing, just that because it's not repeated in the New Testament, but that's the argument a lot of people will make. And things like necromancy, bestiality, incest, all those things are not explicitly mentioned or repeated in the New Testament.
Right. They're not repeated because we're supposed to know them from the Old Testament. Exactly. Because that's all they really had to teach off of anyway, right? Was the Torah.
Well, yeah, and I also think that they don't have, they don't have anything in the New Testament saying that you can't be, transgender or whatnot. But if you read, in the Torah, it says that girls can't wear boys' clothes and boys can't wear girls' clothes.
Did you say
I
it
mean,
doesn't say
so
that?
It
it's
says in Deuteronomy and in Leviticus, I think it goes over and says that boys can't wear women's clothes and girls can't wear boys' clothes. But I don't think it says anywhere in the New Testament it follows that same
I
commandments.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Sorry for the intrusion. What were you saying, Casey?
no, I was just agreeing with that. That yeah, it's in Deuteronomy and Leviticus, you have all the instructions against cross-dressing. You have all the kind of like explicit, like sort of repeating of, all the different people you can't have relations with, within family, even extended family, and things like that. But like a big one for me, because a lot of people will say, well, that's kind of implied in the New Testament where it says that people who, like the sexually immoral, will not enter the kingdom of heaven. But even if that's supposed to be implied there, nowhere any of those new instructions does it, like I said, mention cannibalism or mention necromancy. But I think that most, believers would be opposed to using like a Ouija board, or opposed to cannibalism. And
Well,
I could
yeah,
make the argument that to start saying everything is okay to eat does like kind of go down the slippery slope of like eating people is okay, because I was listening to a Catholic Answers Live radio station a few months back, and one of the call-in people who was a Catholic asking one of the priests that was on Catholic Answers Live sort of like a moral question of like, okay, if I'm in this scenario and I'm starving, like a Dahmer party kind of situation, and when and is it ever okay to eat people? And the Catholic priest did give the response that if they're already dead or whatever, he gave basically a response at some point that it is okay, according to the Catholic Church. And just like how we see in most of Western Protestantism, you have all kinds of things that are okay, when you start just kind of going down that line.
Yeah, just like Acts chapter 10. You know, like my former preacher there, he says that Yah made all foods clean because of what's said in Acts chapter 10. And I'm like, well, he didn't make human beings clean for food. That was one of the first things that I kind of noticed about it. Hey, Casey, I'm just curious. How you seem to know about the Torah and stuff really well, especially
Uh-huh.
coming from the New Testament and stuff. I'm kind of curious. Um, where are you at in time prophecy and stuff like that? And you don't have to answer, of course. Um,
Yeah. Like, how old do I know the subject, or what's my view on it, and where we're at?
yeah, kind of. Yeah, what would be your view? And I'm not asking for a
Are you
debate
asking
and
like
stuff
how
like
well do I
that.
know the subject, or
Well,
oh,
that
my view?
too.
Okay. No, yeah. I mean, so like, yeah, on that subject, I would say that like with anything that's eschatological, like I would give the disclaimer that um, no one can be 100% right knowing the future yet, as if it's already happened. Like I think we all kind of declared last time I got on with you guys that I don't think anyone here is a preterist or anything. So clearly, I don't believe in past fulfillment. But I can't say for certainty if I give my position on things that are future tense, like eschatology. I can give my thoughts on it. Sometimes my view might change on it. I'm open to being corrected or change my mind on it, but also I don't really accept that anyone 100% has it right, except for we 100% can say that we know what Scripture says about it. We just may not be clear or see eye to eye on that. So I see, like, if you had to ask, like, well, where do I think? Because I've had people ask me this, like, how close do you think we are, or how far? I couldn't say. Like, I think every generation kind of thinks it's happening in their time. Um, I think that I think we're closer because of certain things. Kind of, is it Isaiah where it talks about, or no, is it Daniel about I think it's Daniel that information, knowledge will increase, and people
Yeah,
will be
Daniel.
yeah, Daniel. So knowledge will increase, and people will be kind of able to go to and from all over. I think those things were kind of like reaching that point. I think that, or we're there. Things like in like Revelation 8 or 9, the Euphrates drying up. I think we see that happening. It's not completely happened yet, but where it's happening now in a way that it has never happened before in history. We've got there's a lot of things, kind of like how, and I think this is in Enoch, and this is also in other in like kind of quote mainstream canon, whether it's 66 or 88 books or whatever, whoever's church you go to holds to. But several of the books sort of say that that towards like the latter days, towards those times, that well, kind of like we'll just go off of Daniel right there. The idea of knowledge increasing. Well, there's things like the idea that we didn't have the Qumran scrolls until the 50s, which is pretty modern, and we didn't even fully have them translated until the 1990s, which is very recent. So those are things where there's knowledge there that we never had our fingertips on, or were able to kind of even understand. Even when we got it in the like 50 years ago or more, we didn't really even understand it until more recently. And then I would say you have more people coming to a better understanding of those things that we've only been able to translate since the 90s now. And then I line all that up with kind of like the global agenda, and you kind of see they had like their agenda 2020 became 2030. And I think the last time, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, when I looked at what was going on with the Euphrates, they were projecting something like 15 years for it to that, but not quite there. Where they all have like little bits of some of those markers, but that's kind of where I'm at. As far as timeline, I think that
if it were to happen in my lifetime, I could and then there's the separate event, which is just us. I believe being taken to the New Jerusalem, which will descend with the Son of Man from the clouds. So, like, I don't. When people ask me about like heaven or things like that, hell, I'm like, well, I don't. For one, I don't believe in hell. I believe in the grave. I don't believe in rapture. I believe in resurrection. I don't think I'm going to heaven. I think heaven's coming here.
I would agree with all what you're saying. I think you're right on point. What I've studied.
Yeah. And yeah, that's just my understanding of it currently. And yeah, I'm, like you said, not married to it. Like, I could be wrong. It doesn't really affect me if I'm wrong. So I had someone get visibly shaken talking to me about the rapture, and they were praying for me. They said they'd pray for me because I didn't accept rapture theology. And I told them, well, if I'm wrong, what? Like, who cares? Good for me. I'll get taken up or whatever.
Yeah, no, I know some people that get real. Yeah. Well, the funny part is, and if you have you done any like like looking into conspiratorial realms at all in the world?
Oh yeah.
Um, you ever heard of Project Bluebeam?
Yeah, of course.
So they've said that they could do a fake rapture, and just imagine like those people's faces, like that person that was visibly shaking. You know how visibly shaken they're going to believe if they believe people got raptured and they got left behind.
Yeah, a lot of people will be angry at Kirk Cameron. We always make a joke anytime, like if one of our children are like straggled behind or someone's left behind anywhere when we're doing something, we always say they got Kirk Cameron. That's like the running joke around here. But yeah, I think that's going to be a part of like what we were reading earlier, or whatever I was quoting, they'll be given over to a great delusion. I think that's part of it, and it's part of like I was actually just when I was working today, driving around, I was watching a Rob Skiba video that I started a while back, where he was talking about kind of a possible kind of fake rapture, alien abduction type thing.
Am I
And then,
back, y'all?
the last year, have you seen all the videos of all the drone stuff? Yeah, what happened?
Oh, y'all can hear me? Okay, cool. Yeah, I apologize.
I can hear you. You disappeared though.
Yeah, my internet killed on me. I had to reset it.
Hold on.
Sorry, I jumped out like that. It probably messed up the stream too, but it
You missed
says I'm
it.
not connected. So,
Casey
oh,
was just killing it with his eschatology. All kinds of good points you missed out. You're gonna have to ask him to go over it again.
I did hear most of it. Um, well, one thing about me is I don't try to put any kind of specific timelines on it. Um, I just try to put it chronologically. But I do want to run something by you. You know, they're talking about bombing um, Gaza and making that
Mm-hmm.
American soil and all that stuff. Daniel chapter 11, verse 45, it says, "And he shall plant the tents of his palace between the seas and the glorious holy mountain. Yet he shall come to his end, and no one will help him." Does that not sound like what they're talking about doing? I guess I done lost connection again.
Yeah, I think you're still there.
Oh, okay. It's not doing real good.
I'm
I
gonna
think
cut
there's a
out,
lot of
guys.
I think there's a lot of Bible prophecy about you know that area getting kind of handed over at some point. Um, and there being a judgment over the people there. And I think that kind of speaks against a lot of the Zionism and the idea that, and same with like dispensationalism, just that there's, the people occupying that area right now are going to stay there. And I mean, I think that ultimately, like, this kind of goes in a little eschatology too, that I think that area, like it says, is going to be like laid to waste at some point in time and made flat for the kingdom of heaven to descend on.
We'll see.
But I think there's a lot of other things that have got to take place first. Like I think they will build a third temple. I just don't think that is the temple. I think the temple is in heaven, and that's what's coming down. But
Well, I think
I'm gonna
that's what.
jam out, guys. It's good seeing you. I'm gonna vow or two.
yeah, have a blessed night.
All right, Dave. Many blessings to you, brother.
Sorry I missed y'all, but
Hey, welcome, Veronica. Well, yeah, I was just about to welcome you, and kind of got sidetracked there for a moment. But it's better late than
yeah, I
never.
was on the YouTube, but I jumped on your YouTube, but it's still trying to connect to Discord. It looks like yet. Unless you're
It's saying it's supposed to be working. I don't know.
unless it's my phone. Here, I'll
No,
go
it's
off and go
probably
back
on
on
this
again.
end. I'm sure it is.
Yeah, it's showing and you I can't read that. It's just showing like a blank gray screen, and the Discord thing is just spinning, like trying to connect. I don't know if you can see that.
No, I can't see it. Everything on my end showing that it's connected. I'm looking around. Well, I keep hitting the wrong thing. Stream.
It could be me, but I don't know. Anybody else able to check? Oh, now it's playing back.
Yeah, it says not responding. Yep. OBS is wait. Okay. OBS is currently active. Well, the chat just showed
It
up.
went back. I can only go as far as where Casey's.
Okay. I can't type.
It's a little behind. Like I don't know. I have it.
So it is still connected then, or it did reconnect?
When
Yeah,
I
it's probably going to be a
just went
delay.
on it though, it went like. Yeah, it's delayed because it's David and Casey talking, and I can't like fast forward it. See, I'll keep an eye on it.
I just saw the chat and it's showing a warning. I can't see this though. Let me see if I can move it. Can't move it out of the way. I don't know. Anyway, I also want to welcome one from the North Star State as well. Saw you jumped in as I was had left out. Didn't mean to leave out though. As far
Yeah, I was
as
listening on YouTube.
oh, okay, all right. As far as how much time is going to take place, we were just talking about the destruction of that area and stuff like that. Well, what I'm seeing is from Daniel 11:45 to Daniel 12:1. Daniel 12:1 would be the very next thing to happen. At that time, Michael shall stand up, the great prince who stands watch over the sons of your people, and there shall be a time of trouble such as never was since there was a nation, even to that time. And at that time your people shall be delivered, every one who is found written in the book. Now, in my opinion here, I don't hold to any type of rapture event. Um, but in my opinion here, once Daniel 11:45 does take place, I don't think it'll be very much longer before the sixth seal is opened. I'm kind of the opinion, I'm sorry, the seventh seal, not the sixth seal, but I'm kind of the opinion that the 144,000 are being sealed now. And then when the seventh
Anthony,
seal opens, go ahead.
what is it that's making you say that?
Because of Revelation 13:3.
I mean, you want to quantify it with like things that are going on in the world. I mean, you can do that, but like read it maybe or something for me. I'm just trying to get where you're coming from with this. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just trying to look for some quantification for it.
Right. Well, we saw that dude almost get shot, right? Well, Revelation 13:3, it says, I saw one of his heads as
Allegedly.
if, yeah, exactly,
Sorry.
exactly, allegedly. That's the whole point. Yeah, it he seemed to get shot, right? He seemed to. But it says, I saw one of his heads as if it had been mortally wounded, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world marveled and followed the beast. Well, the NIV, it it just flat out says it seems like. A matter of fact, I'll look it up. I got the capability in the NIV though. Right there. Oh man, it's not gonna work apparently. I guess when my internet shut down, it just killed everything. But basically, it's saying that the beast seemed to have had a mortal head wound. All right. Well, when we look before that, it says, then I stood on the sand of the sea, and I saw the beast rising up out of the sea, having 7 heads, 10 horns. We all know this story, right? But it's the dragon that gives power to the beast. Where did I see that? Yeah, in verse 2 it says, now the beast which I saw was like a leopard, his feet were like the feet of a bear, his mouth like the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power, his throne, and his great authority. Well, it was the dragon capsule that made Elon famous. It was Elon that basically bought the throne, so to speak, for Trump. Okay. And then Trump is the one who seemed to have gotten shot. I guess I've lost connection again. Can y'all still hear me? I don't think y'all can.
I can hear you.
You won't for long.
Yeah.
I just lost internet again. Oh, this is getting,
That is unfortunate.
well, it's doing something. Maybe it didn't completely lose connection. I tell you what though, it's not doing good. My internet is failing. But anyway, what I was trying to, if it'll let me, if my internet will let me, um, Trump, well, I mean, Elon basically bought Trump into office. He backed him 100% and all that stuff. So anyway, if he is the beast, and if he's wanting to bomb that the Gaza Strip over there, and he wants to make his throne or his palace there, it won't be long before Michael stands up. It'll be the very next thing. And I think that's going to be the first trumpet. Revelation 8, 6, and 7.
I guess what the things I can say or can't say, don't know how to say maybe, is that the first trumpet's probably already blown or it's really close to it.
Well, I don't think that could happen yet, because I don't think the seventh seal's been opened.
Well, then we're close.
Hey, I got to take off, but I was just gonna say I was listening to you guys before I had to go. And I'm throwing this out there. I haven't even given it much thought or any thought, and I'm sure other people have thought about it or mentioned it. But listening to you guys talk about that stuff, I was wondering about as far as timeline wise, the Beast, and I wonder about like characters on the scene, like Baron, Trump, or even X. You know, the son of Elon, and just even the name X and how it's kind of like you could associate with the Tav in the alphabet, and or the cross even. And like even just last week, I just was watching some news thing where they had Elon in the Oval Office talking about Doge, and the whole time he had his son there, and just thought that was kind of interesting. And you guys talking about that right now just reminded me that X was there, and I don't know, weird name and a lot of weird stuff going on there. But anyway, more stuff for you guys to talk about. But I gotta go.
Many blessings to you, brother. And I'm actually kind of leaning in that direction as well, rather
night,
than Elon, but
Yeah.
instead X. But yeah, I think you make a very good point. And thank you very much again for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having the Bible study and the YouTube thing going. I'm glad I saw it and hopped on. I kind of forgot you guys get together on Monday nights, and then I saw the YouTube notification. So yeah, keep doing that.
I'm gonna try as long as my
But
internet
yeah,
will
I'll see
let
you guys. You
me.
have a blessed night.
Many blessings.
Have a good night.
Oh yeah. All right. See y'all. Bye.
Well, I do want to welcome Creole Monkey and Yuri444 to the YouTube, and Bunghole. I saw him in there, and Veronica, uh, Jumper, and I missed a lot of the chat, y'all. Um, when the internet went down, I missed a lot of it. Sorry, just trying to kind of catch up. But yeah, one one from the North Star State. You know, I wasn't crude about that. Um, I, I think like what you said though that we're close. I think you're very. I think you're right on the money there. I think it's very close. 'Cause I kind of feel like if this analogy is true, then if it be the case, then the 144,000 would have to be being sealed now, unless
No, I think
when
so.
unless
Go
Trump
ahead. I'm
is the
sorry, Corey.
last president, you know, unless he's going to make some sort of a dictatorship rule, then it might not be right now. You know, it like you said, it could be several years from now.
Even so, like, okay, let's just say in the timeline of things, when you look at the book of Revelation, to me, you can have commas, like the first trumpet sounds, comma, and then we can have a space of time, and then things will start happening. Like Casey was saying earlier, like, we don't really know. We won't know until we know what is going on with these prophecies. Some things we can point and speculate to, but until they happen, we won't truly know. So
Well, I think you're
I don't
exactly
know.
right about that.
I think
When
that
the
one wears on me a lot. Like people tell me this is how it is. It's absolute. And
well, see, I think you're right. Like when the
oh, go
first
ahead.
trumpet
I was done.
sounds, yeah, my voice is probably delayed or something. But when the first trumpet sounds, I think you're right that there'll be some time in between the next trumpet. And
Yeah, you
matter of
got a little
fact,
late.
one of them it'll be 5 months in between the trumpet and the vial. It'll last for 5 months. Believe us, this trumpet. Can't remember exactly, but one of them would be 5 months. But yeah, the way I understand it is like when the trumpet sounds, the vial will begin to be poured out until it's completed, until it's completely poured out. And then the second trumpet sounds, and the second vial is poured out in its completion. And then at the seventh trumpet, of course, is when the resurrection takes place. And the seventh vial is what takes place, like, I guess, after the resurrection, the, when we're caught into the clouds and stuff like that. I kind of feel like we're caught into the clouds so we get out of the way of the seventh vial.
And that's kind of the rapture idea that I'm not so necessarily sure that I'm keen on. And my fun theory is that's when we get our superpowers and we learn how to fly. But who knows?
Okay, well, basically the same thing, but I don't believe it's a rapture. I
Well,
just
you got the dead in Christ rise first, right? Those that are worthy will be made like angels, then the rest.
right.